addiction and toxic Christianity. I have been, from early on, I always kind of felt self-conscious and different, you know. And on the outside, you could never tell. So I was always very uncomfortable in my skin. And I kind of understand a little bit better today why. None of that really matters at this point. But I grew up in church. I go into church occasionally with my Mima and other family members. But when I was in junior high, we started going regularly. My mom started taking us. And I have a lot of really wonderful memories from that time. I mean, I was in a really great youth group. I want to be sure that it is known that there was a lot of good. I was very on fire for God, on fire for Jesus, addicted to Jesus. If you listen to Carmen back in the day, that was my stuff. I could probably do the Holy Ghost hop. I can remember making signs that said God loves you and holding them out the window of the car as my mom drove us around the city. This is a true story. I wanted people to know that God loved me. I remember taking, in the 8th grade, I got a youth study Bible, and I was just so excited, and I remember taking my Bible to lunch and opening it, and, you know, I'm with all my friends, they're talking about New Kids on the Block, who I love too, but I was reading the Bible. So there was a real fire in me from early on, a real care that people knew that God loved them. I remember I had a real heart for homeless people too, and I remember one time we visited a church, my family and I, we visited a church that during praise and worship, a homeless man came in and was really, really praising God. And they came and removed him. They came and they took him out, and so I think I led the charge out there to see what they were doing. And they said that some wallets had been stolen, so they were having him arrested. And I mean, I was probably in the 8th grade. And I just remember pitching a fit about it, and we marched back in and got our stuff and left. So that's kind of the kind of teenager I was. And then I hit high school, and you know, the boy stuff. Boy stuff was always an issue with me. I just would be devastated every time a boy broke up with me. But I mean, when you're 14 years old, that is what happens. So there was just one boy in 8th grade that I just really, I mean, I don't know what it was about him, but he broke up with me, and that was my first suicide attempt. And it's not funny to laugh about suicide, but I do laugh about this because I went into the bathroom in my 6th hour, and I had a bottle of like aftershave cologne, and I drank it, and I went back to class and waited to die. But nothing happened because it was just like basically alcohol. And so I don't even know if my parent mom knew about that. I mean, I think you know, but I don't remember it being like I came home crying like, oh, you know, it just was kind of a non-event. But this is where the state of my insights were going. And then a few years later in high school, that same boy had a girlfriend, but I was kind of like his little side piece, and I couldn't bear that. And I don't know what happened. Maybe she found out or whatever. I was humiliated, and I just couldn't. I just thought I can't. And this time, it was a lot more serious, a suicide attempt, and I was hospitalized. I guess what it would be called is like a juvenile psych ward today for like 3 weeks. There I met a lot of other kids who have a lot of troubles. I mean, I had troubles, but these kids knew a kind of trouble that I didn't. It's the first time I heard the word codependent. You know, in 10th grade, I learned what that meant. And then I got out and life continued. I mean, I was a cheerleader and a football manager, and I was popular and I always had friends. And, I was okay on the outside-ish. You know, all this inside stuff just kind of just stays there. I was also a cutter, and I just remember getting really great relief anytime I cut on my arms. And it was embarrassing because I'm a normal kid, right? But I get relief from cutting on my arm. So I knew, I knew that I had some stuff, but you just kind of carry on with life. And then I had a boyfriend in my junior year in high school, and I started drinking and smoking pot my senior year. It was the end of my senior year. And my parents found out, and they were like, you're grounded from everything for the rest of the senior year. You can't go out or party or whatever. And it was like, whatever. And they told me that, and I remember going to school that day and making a plan, and it was like something in me was driving me. I walked in the door after school, my boyfriend dropped me off, and I walked straight into my house and grabbed whatever was in sight and left and moved out of my home, my senior year of high school, and lived in a really bad part of town with a friend and his mother, and I got to do whatever I wanted, and I did everything I wanted, every drug that came my way. I was withdrawn from high school because I didn't go back. I had like 4 months left. And at the end of all that, I ended up coming home, as you can imagine, in a very sad way. And shortly after that, I found out I was pregnant. So the way my life kind of looks is like in and out of dysfunction. It's like I fall into this dysfunction, and then I get back on like the straight and narrow, if you will. Start going back to church. I have this baby who I love, who really changes my life. I get out on my own and taking care of us, and just partying like a 21-year-old will party. Guys and booze and drugs and having a really good time. And then I met the man that I would later marry. He was great. He was so nice, and he was a lot different than the other guys I dated. What I didn't pay attention to in the beginning, which I saw, but I just ignore every red flag because I just have to have that great love. I just have to have you, and we'll figure it out later down the road. He wasn't well either. We were very similar with our inside dysfunction and our lack of care for ourselves, our lack of self-worth. And for him, this spiraled into an opiate addiction that I tried to manage and control. And you can't do that. It doesn't, we don't have any control over anyone's life. And if you don't learn that lesson, you probably feel really unhappy because I wanted the best for him and our family, and he was sick. But see, I didn't understand at that time the sickness that was addiction. I was just angry and tired of the bad choices he made. And I was hard on him, and I wasn't very loving, and it was a really hard time. This is where my faith comes in. I was, my life group, and I constantly asked for prayer, and I was just praying at Bible study and life group and just going to church and doing all the things, and nothing changed with him. And what I found for me is that I was getting sicker and sicker and sicker with all of the misery that comes from trying to control someone else's life. So because I was in that state, there was a day in time, a moment in time when everything changed for me. I had been saving some money to buy the kids a Wii, I think, for Christmas, and that money was not in my purse. And so I knew, and when I talk about marriage, we were in and out of counseling. People, this wasn't just like a couple-year thing, and we ended up being married 14 years, but the money was gone, and I just remember standing in my kitchen, and something broke in me, and I made a decision to do whatever I had to do to feel good from that point on. I didn't care. And a few months later, I connected with an old boyfriend and started the first of very many affairs. That one was a very long-term one that also made me very sick. At this time, I'm a good Christian lady. I am a fitness instructor for an organization, fitness organization that teaches classes in church gyms and whatnot around the city. It's really around the world, really. Great organization, and I loved it. And I look back now, and my involvement in that organization really saved me. It was an outlet for me that I desperately needed because everything else was crumbling slowly. So it was around my 30th birthday when I started just whatever it takes, but also not consciously saying, I'm going to do everything I can to do everything wrong and hurt people. It was just like, I just want to feel better, and I'm sick and tired of carrying this marriage and, getting all this counsel, and all the counsel said, keep working, keep working, keep working. And I really just wanted someone to say, you have permission to take care of yourself, you have permission to leave. The church won't tell you that. The church didn't tell me that. That was part of the way it needed to be. So, from 30 to the last 5 years, from 30 to 35-ish, where things just progressively got worse. I know to the people that were closest to me, they knew. I mean, the people that were in my inner circle didn't know. I was fine. I had a good time. I showed up at parties and laugh and have a great time. It's not like I was constantly walking around depressed, but man, I was dysfunctional. My home was dysfunctional. And I mean, there was a time when I thought, maybe I'm cursed because I'm doing all the things I know to do, the church tells me to do, and nothing changes. And look, I've been saved, and I've rededicated my life, and I've been baptized a couple of times. Like, I knew Jesus, and nothing was helping me. And so there came a time when the person I was having an affair with, he wanted me to make a decision, or he wanted to be able to go live his life. And I said, go live your life, because ultimately I knew I was never going to make a decision to be with him. And so that was another, a terrible time. So it all leads up to this chance text message I get in December of 2012. And I'm not going to go into all of the things that were in the text message, but even to this day, as I talk about this, it seems like it wasn't real. I got a text message from the wrong number, and that set off about 9 or 10 months of real downward spiral for me. My sexual behavior got really out of control. And there was a time back when I was having the long-term affair that I knew I could not stop. And I know people are like, oh yeah, you couldn't stop. No, I really could not stop. I did not want to keep living the way that I was living. And I would say, no more, this is over. I'm going to make it work with my husband, and I'm going to be a good person. And I couldn't, if I'd have a bad day, I'd feel depressed, and I'd be right back to the thing that made me feel better. Even if it was a temporary feel better, I felt powerful, in control. And so I get this text message, and everything. Oh yeah. So I reached out to the pastor's wife at the church that I had been going to. This was a few years before this text message. And I remember her husband had his story was well known. He had an affair and all these things, and there was restoration, that kind of story. And so I reached out to her, and I said, I can't stop having affairs. Do you know of a support group? Do you know of any other women like me that I was seeking help. And she did not, but she recommended a book to me. What I know now is she just didn't know people, and they weren't sharing that with her, obviously, but at the time I took that as I'm the only one. There are no women like me. This is a man thing, and I'm a woman doing it, and I'm alone, and I'm not reading that book. So I kind of just gave myself this weird permission to just be like, it's a hopeless case. So the last 9 months before I started to get help were pretty bad. I mean, even the closest people to me there was starting to be some friction in the relationships with the people who had walked with me through all of the tedious stuff. And, the decisions I'm making were increasingly dangerous and harmful to me. I mean, I'm not kidding when I say that there were days I would wake up and think the only thing that kept me going was the knowledge that if I wanted to, I could kill myself. And that gave me the greatest peace. And I know that's so sick, and it is, but that gave me peace. And so, thankfully, so that organization that I was with, the fitness organization, the Christian fitness organization, one of my closest friends in that group, basically, there was a group of girls in that group that we all taught classes together. We were like besties, if you will. Some of us were closer than others, but we were kind of just this little core group. And they all kind of got together and realized, and other people in my life, not just them, but that I needed help. And so they set out to raise money to send me to rehab in place called The Ranch in Tennessee. And I remember they also put me in contact with a therapist. And I remember that therapist having me call her and check in daily because she was afraid for my life. She was afraid that I would take my own life and that someone else would. And I just remember being like, why is everyone being so dramatic? While simultaneously knowing that there was no drama here. Like, this is the truth. This is the truth of your life right now. So I'm lucky and blessed, and I had people who cared about me in this really big organization. People chipped in and sent me away to one of the best treatment centers in the country. I got to go for 5 weeks, and I hated it. I hated a lot of it. I mean, I was 35 years old, and I had to leave my kids. I missed my son's 16th birthday. I missed Jackson's first day of junior high. These were reasons why I thought I can't go. But I knew that if people were like, if you don't go, you're not gonna live. So I went, and the greatest thing that rehab gave me was a chance to get away. No phone. I did sign a release for everybody that knew me to get information about me, which was a huge mistake. Don't ever do that, because it caused so much drama. People were calling, and they were allowed to get updates from my therapist, and everything went crazy. So I got to get away, and I also got some education about the disease of addiction. And I still remember they had called it's an orientation class, and I thought it was just gonna be like rules. No, it was like a 3-hour class on the science of addiction, and it was the most valuable thing that I got. I got a lot of good there, That was really like the tiniest first step in a really long road that continues, today. This is where things start getting harder. I kind of had this idea that I would go and I would come home, and keep in mind this organization paid for me to go. I flew out there, and I was going to fly home when it was over. And this organization was, I was going to just come back, and I just thought people would be at the airport with a welcome home Lindy sign. I really did think that, I also thought, because it was wild, when I went, I knew I had a lot of issues with my sex behavior, but I wasn't really paying attention to my alcoholism. Because to me, an alcoholic is the bum under the bridge. That's just all there is to it. I was highly functioning. I never missed work. But I was constantly medicating, thinking about alcohol, thinking of ways I could, pre-game, drink till an hour before I go out, managing my hangovers, managing my drinks. Everything is always constantly trying to manage my drinking. So because I signed the releases and all this stuff, and I had a therapist who was kind of not fully on the up and up, things just got real twisted with some of my support group back home. Well, all of them really. I mean, I had to. People thought when I got there that I just was getting crazier and crazier and crazier. And so what some of my support group wanted me to do was they wanted me to stay and go to sober living in Tennessee or Mississippi or somewhere for 3 months after I left rehab. And I said, I'm not going to do it. I'll do it in Oklahoma City, but I'm not going to be away from my kids any longer. And they were following the advice of a therapist, which was great. But the thing was is that this was a therapist who didn't know me, and also my support group wasn't getting any support from themselves. If you love an alcoholic or an addict, it is not just their sole responsibility to do the work. I highly encourage you to find resources to take care of yourself in it, because it's our natural human instinct to want to save people and fix people, and most of the time when you try to do that, you really cause a lot more harm, and that's what happened here. This group of women who were my friends, I remember my last week there, I finally felt like I was turning the corner, and I felt really happy and hopeful. And I came home one day, did 3 letters from home, and they were chastising me, all of them, with Bible verses, speaking the truth in love, and basically telling me I had to prove to them something. And so they revoked my plane ticket home. That's the way I remember it. I don't know if it's exactly that way, but so my mom and sisters drove up and got me. And I remember when I got my phone back and I got back in our group Facebook message and saw the things that were being talked about while I was gone, I was horrified and angry, and it was like they just didn't have, they had such a skewed version of what was going on, and I felt the need to explain and make everything okay, and I did try to do that in the beginning. I just got home, I didn't have a sponsor or any kind of leadership or guidance. I was just trying to make everything okay, which ended up doing harm to myself even more. And then I found out from a coworker, I'd been working at this Christian school in Edmond, that the principal was standing in the teacher's lounge one day just sharing intimate details of all the things I'd done, including sex stuff, and I was humiliated and I wanted to die. And this is like when I came home. I was thinking I was coming home to like applause. And I came home to like what I thought were like enemies. And, what seemed like people enjoying this juicy gossip, which was the stuff that I wanted to die over. And I began to form a very deep-rooted resentment towards those people. We weren't friends anymore. It was like all of a sudden we weren't friends anymore. I remember on the trip home, I'm in the group Facebook message with them, and I'm kind of having some tough words with them, and I just remember them saying, one girl saying, you're going to have to prove to us that you're ready to surrender. And I was like, don't talk to me about surrender. Like, that's all I've been learning about for the last 35 days, sun up to sundown. It's like, surrender. And in the Facebook message, you can see when people leave the chat, and the other girls just start leaving the chat, And I remember my therapist at the time when I came to her with, so the teacher had said the things at the school, and got around to a male parent who then reached out to me and hit on me from what he heard. So he actually said this to me, you don't need AA, you need Jesus. And sometimes I hear that in my head and I'm like, oh, I know now. He needed some, he had sick too. So all of this stuff, and I just wanted to crawl under a rock and die. And so I deleted my Facebook. My therapist said, you don't need those people in your life right now, Lindy. This is what God has allowed. And so just stick with your recovery community, which is what I did. I immediately started attending 12-step meetings and a couple of different programs when I got home. Probably 3 or 4 weeks after I got home. Oh, my first week home, the fitness organization leader set up a meeting with me to a pastor at the church that I had been attending. And I look at it now and I was like, they meant well. These people really meant well. But it was like, go tell them your story and let's see what they do. It's like, look, you've been healed, you're an overcomer. And I would cringe at the overcomer term because I'm like, I don't know anything. I'm trying to live. I'm just trying to want to live. I'm not like, praise God, I'm healed. I kind of thought it would be like that. Found out really quickly it wasn't. And I remember going and talking to this guy, this pastor, and I had no clue, and I gave him all the dirty details of my sexual history. All of it. I was like, this is what I did, this is when I'm really in the dark, certain sexual preference, and I was like, and then I just kept on, and I looked back on that, and I'm like, what was that? What was that? That was inappropriate. I was being inappropriate by giving all those details. I didn't know anything. Thank God for the rooms of AA. Thank God for 12-step rooms. I went there and I found people that were just like me. And when I was in Tennessee, I found women that were just like me. Okay, I wasn't the only one. And I started working with a woman, my sponsor, she's my sponsor today, who had such a really good way of not being scandalized by the stuff I continued to do because I didn't stay sober right away. I got into a fight with my kids one night and drove through an AA meeting parking lot across the street to the liquor store. Went home and hid it in my bathroom drinking. My kids were like, "Are you drinking?" I'm like, "No," And so she just would be like, "Just keep showing up. We're gonna keep working the steps. We're gonna keep doing the work." And so then shortly after that, I started dating a married guy in the program, which, that's just what I did. And that ended up being that relationship with that person ended up being such a great lesson because I had kind of imagined myself and all this such a victim to these relationships and the way these men treated me. But the reality was that I was treating them a certain way too. And I learned the hard way with him. And when you start getting sober and you start realizing how you hurt people, it's not like this shame, it's kind of this deep grief, and you want to make it right, and you want to do it different. I started to feel some sparks of that, but it took a little while. And so this guy was with his wife on New Year's Eve, and I was at a party where everyone was drinking, and I'm standing in the bathroom, all my friends who I love, but I shouldn't have been there without a sober friend. So I'm totally, the New Year's ringing in. I'm always really melancholy at the New Year anyway. I'm 3 months sober, my boyfriend's at downtown celebrating with his wife, and I'm standing in a bathroom at this party as the counts down, and I'm just staring in the mirror like you see on TV, and I'm just like staring at myself, and I'm like, what am I doing? And 5 days later, I had my last drink. It was a doozy. I left to go get a venti, whatever, at Starbucks, and I ordered it and drove straight to TGI Fridays on Memorial. With the Sunday crowd, I got there at 11 a.m. and everybody that was coming there after church. And I drank 2 bottles of wine at the bar and cried about being an alcoholic and a sex addict who had relationship problems. And the waitress was like, honey, you're okay. And she just, kept filling me in. But my plan that day was to just drink 2 glasses of wine, go home, sleep it off, and start over. But what happened was chaos. The guy I'd been seeing showed up. I guess I called a friend. All these people showed up. I ended up at home, but no one knew where my car was. I'm still living with my husband. We're totally estranged, but living together, as friendly as we can. We were friendly. So his girlfriend had to come get my son to get him out of the house because I had created a giant mess in the bathroom. And when I woke up, my best friend and my mom and my sister were standing at the end of my bed. And to this day, I see them in white. And it's like this glowing light, like angels. But I remember being so sick, and realizing as I was coming to, this was like not a secret. I didn't like relapse over here and quiet. There were a lot of people involved, and so thank God that these people stayed with me and continued to love me. Because it made a difference. My mom cleaned my bathtub, or my sister did. And I called my sponsor, and she was like not ruffled at all. She's like, okay, we'll just meet you in a meeting, and we're going to keep doing this thing. And we did. Something changed in me from that last drink. It's what I needed. And so I decided I was done with church. I actually stopped using the name Jesus, and I kind of just imagined putting the name Jesus on a shelf. Because it just brought up too much. I was very, very angry with that group of my Christian friends. And every problem I had with Christianity, every problem I had with them, I just projected on all of Christianity. And I just was done, and I just I didn't give up God. I didn't give up that faith that has always been with me. But I gave up the way that the church did it. And in the rooms of recovery, I found the love of God through people who didn't ask me to be different. They just said, we'll walk with you. My sponsor never said change. She never said be different. She said one day you'll have had enough. One day, she began to teach me about this thing called value and self-worth just as I was. Not cleaned up and pretty, but in the pit. Plenty of worth, tons of worth, and she began to teach me, I began to see that I was really participating in my own pain. It wasn't all these people doing things to me. Sure, people hurt me. I was hurting a lot of people, and I was hurting myself. I just continued to wound myself over and over and over, especially I don't know how to make it stop. Pull it down.
If you pull it up, I can turn it down.
There. Is that better?
Yeah.
Okay. I don't know how long this is going, so I began to realize through working the steps, which I know not everybody in here is an addict, but the 12 steps are such a valuable tool. I was given the opportunity to realize that my life was completely unmanageable, and I was powerless to change it without God's help. And not the kind of God's help that I learned in church, which was not really help. I had to learn there was psychology and science and also unconditional love, which people in AA are not like angels, okay? It's like you put all these people in a room that have done a lot of really bad things, but we love well in there. And so that's what I began to learn. I began to kind of see my part in all of the harm that was happening. I played a big part in a lot of my pain. So the drinking was never the problem. The men were never the problem. Those were the solutions to a deep self-loathing, a deep illness within me. And so little by little, I just started doing things didn't just come together. They fell apart. They kept falling apart. Relationships fell apart. My finances were just decimated. And yet I found that I was making it. I was okay. When I was 4 months sober, my dad died unexpectedly. And then, 2 weeks later, my mom was diagnosed with cancer. And I remember when I was driving home from the hospital after my dad died. And we thought he had the flu and then he was dead. And I remember driving home the early hours of the morning after my dad died, and I remember thinking, like, this is a perfect opportunity for me to just, I'm done. I give up. I'm just going to lose it. And there was something. This was the thing that everything I learned, even though, I've been in the program now for, 6 or 9 months, but I only had something like 4 months sober. I was still learning things. There was, life was like blooming within me. And I had the thought that I cannot do that. I cannot make this about me. My family needs me. My mom needs me. I can't do that to them. I don't want to harm them in that way. So now we're worried. My dad died, my mom's sick, and there's Lindy, And so I remember calling my sponsor, and she, my AA family brought me our family food, and they took care of us, We got through that time. I learned a really wonderful lesson called this thing about being where your feet are, looking down wherever you are when you're feeling stressed out or uncertain, and just remembering where you are, like being present in the here and now, and know that God's with you. And we don't know we just don't know what's coming. But here and now, I'm okay. Heartbroken, but okay. So over the years of my recovery, I constantly wrestled with my resentment to the church and those women, and I constantly wanted an opportunity to sit down with them and let them have it. And I never gave me that opportunity. And in fact, at one point, I said to my sponsor, I said, do you think I could maybe invite him to sit down and talk? And she was like, well, only do it if you have no expectations of the outcome. And so I thought, well, if they respond and it's negative, I'm going to be really furious. And so I just thought, I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to expose myself to that. The great thing about working the steps is I got an opportunity to make amends to the people that I had caused harm, some friends that I had really harmed. And my ex-husband, I got to sit down with him. This is probably one of the best parts of my early recovery, was sitting down in front of him and him knowing all the pain he caused us. And he kept going, it's okay because I did this. And I stopped him and I said, no, this is about me owning what I have done to you. And he received it so gracefully, and we are really good friends today. We co-parent, and I just remember after that, life started to look different. I just felt light. I really got an opportunity to clean up the wreckage of my past. A year and a half sober, or a little longer than that, it's the longest story, but I met Israel on Instagram. And I remember we were going to meet for coffee, and I was like, oh, here we go. I got to make sure I'm not being the way that I am. I didn't want to, and this is what I remember thinking. I had, besides a married guy in recovery, I then dated another guy, and that didn't go well. It was like a blip. But after that, I was so devastated after dating this guy for like a month. I cried for like a month. It was ridiculous. I look back now and I'm like, thank you, God, for not letting that thing work out. But I learned that I was participating in my pain. Stop. You do not need something outside of you to make you okay. You have everything you need. And so I really just started believing that. I just would not reach out and text people who, when I didn't feel good, I wouldn't reach out to guys and be like, oh, what are you doing? I just put a stop to it, and I would call friends and instead. So when I got the opportunity to meet Israel for coffee, I remember being like, okay, I'll meet you there. Let's have coffee in the day. And I did not want to have a date. I just wanted to be really light and easy because I didn't really know if I could trust myself. And I'd never taken into, consideration what kind of human he might be. I just assumed that I might be able to get it. And so I remember that I had the thought that I'm not going to worry anymore about finding the right guy. I'm not going to worry anymore about being the right woman for the right guy. I'm just going to focus on being good to myself. And that was a game changer. And I met Israel, and it's so weird. It's like he's like my pastor, and I'm like, oh no. Because I knew, and I kind of I was going to be like, we're going to come back to the church thing at some point. So he was going to an Episcopal church, I grew up in Baptist churches, and then mega churches. And so I'd never been to an Episcopal church, and it was different. And also, I loved it. There was some solitude I could find there. Their customs and the way they did Advent and the way that they did Easter. It was really beautiful and meaningful, and so I kind of thawed out while I was there. I didn't participate. I would go every now and then with him, and he was fine with that. I love that about Israel. You have to go to church with me every Sunday, because I would be like, oh, we're not going to work. He did a really good job of just letting me do what I needed to do over here, and he was supportive. And so we were there something like 3 years, and then we ended up here, which was surprising. And this moment feels in some ways like a full circle moment for me, because I've done a lot of work on my resentments. This past summer, I got to sit down with one of the girls from that group of girls, and I got to tell her how much she hurt. It wasn't all of them. It wasn't the principal from the school and all those people that were like, oh, tell me more. But I didn't want to hurt her anymore. I didn't want to twist the knife and be like, you're a terrible person and this is what you did. I'd grown enough, and God had really worked in me through the people in the program that loved me. And I just got to tell her, and she lovingly apologized to me, and she's not the same person she was 5 years ago, So God is with us. I love Advent. I love that we say, Emmanuel, God is with us. God has never not been with me. The church taught me that God has this umbrella of protection. I can get out from under it. That's crap. It's crap. So that's saying that when my dad died, I must not have been under the umbrella of protection. Yes, I did a lot of things. My consequences were mine. I made decisions that hurt me and others, people that I love. But God never left me. God was not waiting for me to shine up and to come to him. I hate that we do that. I hate it so much, and I cringe when I hear this idea that the best love is waiting for the people who accept it. Because I just don't think that's the love of God. I think God is in us, and what he desires for us to know is that we are loved. And not only that, but to be at peace. That's something recovery gave me. Peace, the best thing, this thing called serenity. I don't stay in it, but I know how to return to it. I never knew about it before. I was constantly stressed out about how to make everything work. I don't have to do that today. I still stress about it. I'm human, I'm not perfect. I haven't arrived at any place. I'm awake. I awoke to the love of God through the people who walked with me when it was hard. They didn't say, get your crap together. I was doing that enough. People who struggle are the hardest on themselves. They need your love. And I know family, it's hard for family, and sometimes you have to love from a distance. But I really want people to know, no matter what you're in, no matter what your life looks like, no matter what crappy decisions you're making, God loves you. And what he wants for you is not that you quit sinning and be good. We're never going to quit sinning. What he wants from you is to know peace and healing and wholeness. So I want to read this story. It's just a tiny bit long, and then I'm going to finish. Tattoos on the Heart is one of my favorite books. If you don't know Father Gregory Boyle, he's a Jesuit priest who 30 years ago he started an organization called Homeboy Ministries. And basically he helps people get off the street, gang members, and gives them a life, gives them a job. You should look up this book because it's wonderful. It's hilarious and touching. And so he calls the gang members homies, and he's talking about Jason. So Jason's appearance in my life was the first. Though I had known him most of his life, he was an expert at resisting my offers of help. In the interim, Jason had done his share of dirt for his gang. He would rather be employed selling crack than in anything else. He was cemented in his resistance to me. And yet there he was that day in my office. I can't believe you're here, I said. And Jason was uncharacteristically quiet and humble in the face of whatever it was that was happening to him. I wish I could flesh out more why and how Jason managed to show up in my office that day. It's all quite mysterious to me. With my ear to the ground, I knew only his total commitment to his barrio and drug dealing general criminality. I couldn't draw a straight line between the fact of his appearance in my office that day and some pivotal recent moment in the past. I still could only see the goofy kid I had met 15 years earlier who had no recourse but to let the streets raise him. I sent him to one of our job developers, who in turn sends him to a job interview that very day. Not 2 hours later, he's back brimming with excitement. He stands in the doorway of my office. I got the job. That's great, I said. Yeah, he says the manager said I fit the description. He's got me here. Well, I suppose. I say, if you're America's Most Wanted, you might just say you fit the description. Or did he say you met the qualifications? Jason convulses, giggles, slaps his forehead. Yeah, that's what he said, met the qualifications. Sheesh, what was I thinking? Stupid. Jason dropped by often after that to get his fix, I suppose, hoping to get an even better job. He'd get help with his resume. More often than not, he'd just check in with me. This seemed easy for him, no longer saddled with the shame of his previous knucklehead existence. He held his head high and could face me. He could gaze at himself in the mirror and not move. It had been a long time, if ever, since he was able to do that. Like, I want to be a person that people feel comfortable enough, like to be, I want to be that person to where these people who've been through hell, done all the worst things, feel comfortable in my presence. I finally realized why I was out there so long, he tells me in one of his visits, referring to his gangbanging and drug dealing. Yeah, I can see why now. It's just I was so effing angry all the time. And of course, why wouldn't he be? Both his parents were heroin addicts and he was left to raise himself, which kids are not meant to be good at. So, and now he says, I just let it all go. It's the anger, I mean. In one of his drop-bys on a Wednesday, I asked him, so are we all set for your daughter's baptism on Sunday? Oh yeah, he says, I bought the dress, she's gonna look beautiful. The next morning, on the way to a job interview for a better position, Jason was gunned down. Someone drove by and saw him, and perhaps all his past had become present again, and I buried him a week later and baptized his daughter in his funeral mass. I landed on the gospel that I wanted to use at his liturgy. Jesus says, you're the light of the world. I like even more what Jesus doesn't say. He does not say, one day, if you are more perfect and try really hard, you'll be light. He doesn't say, if you play by the rules and cross your T's and dot your I's, then maybe you'll become light. No, he says straight out, you are light. It is the truth of who you are, waiting only for you to discover. So for God's sake, don't move. No need to contort yourself to be anything other than who you are. Jason was who he was. He made a lot of mistakes. He was not perfect. In his rage, called the shots for a goodly chunk of his life. And he was the light of the world. He fit the description. So I hope that we can just know that about ourselves. You know, I hope that we can be good to ourselves and be gentle to ourselves. I'm still learning how to do this. I can be really mean to me. So I think I'll finish. There's a lot of people in here that I love, that have been here with me through all of it. And this is such a full circle moment. I cannot believe that I got to tell my story in church on my terms. Like, in some ways, those people who were talking about all my drama back then did me a favor, because once I got over the initial shock of it, I was like, well, everyone knows there's nothing to be ashamed of. This is just what I did. And it saved me. It's strange. All that crap saved me. So I'm grateful. Thanks.